Ali and Maryam's marriage once looked perfect, built on love, promises, and dreams of a happy life. But behind that facade, Ali's desires had begun to wander. Secret late-night calls, unexplained absences, and hidden messages soon revealed the cracks in their relationship. Maryam, at first, ignored these signs. She convinced herself that it was just stress or work pressure. But the day she found intimate photos and messages on Ali's phone, her heart shattered. The truth was undeniable. Her husband was betraying her. Rage and heartbreak turned into resolve. Maryam refused to be a silent victim. She gathered the evidence and filed a case in court, accusing Ali of infidelity and emotional abuse. What had started as a marriage was now turning into a battlefield. In court, Ali stood with false confidence. He brought fake witnesses, bribed individuals, and painted himself as the innocent husband. Maryam, however, had truth on her side. Each piece of evidence cut through Ali's lies like a blade. Every hearing became a war zone. Shouting lawyers exchanged accusations, tense silence as evidence was displayed. Ali's pride burned with humiliation, while Maryam's determination only grew stronger. With each defeat in court, Ali's anger deepened. He started calling shadowy contacts late at night. He wasn't ready to lose, not to Maryam, not to anyone. His ego turned the legal battle into something darker. One rainy evening, Ali's men tried to abduct Maryam outside her building, but she had anticipated danger. The police, already warned, intervened. A violent clash erupted. Sirens, gunshots, and shouts filled the street. Watching from a black car nearby, Ali panicked as his plan collapsed. He tried to flee, but within minutes he was surrounded. Dragged out in handcuffs, his arrogance crumbled as rain mixed with his tears of rage. In court, with new charges of conspiracy and attempted abduction, Ali's downfall accelerated. Maryam finally breathed relief as the judge ruled in her favor. Ali was sentenced to years in prison, but in his eyes there was no defeat, only the promise of revenge. Prison, however, didn't break him. Ali wasn't just another inmate. His manipulative charm and wealth made him powerful even behind bars. Within months, he had allied with dangerous gangs and bribed corrupt guards. Maryam tried to rebuild her life. She moved into a smaller apartment, took therapy, and worked hard to forget. But every night, the memory of Ali's cold stare haunted her dreams. Deep inside, she knew he wasn't done. Soon, reality confirmed her fears. Her car was vandalized, her lawyer received anonymous threats, and she often noticed strangers following her. Police investigations revealed a shocking truth. Ali was orchestrating everything from inside prison. Using his criminal connections, Ali had turned his jail time into a throne. He directed operations through loyal men outside, sending Maryam a clear message: "You'll never be safe." But Maryam wasn't the same fragile woman anymore. She joined hands with law enforcement, provided every detail, and even agreed to be part of a covert surveillance operation to expose Ali's network. For months, police tracked Ali's communication. Codes, smuggled phones, secret money transfers, all were recorded. A new case was being built, one that could destroy Ali completely. Ali, however, had a bigger plan. He arranged a daring prison escape with the help of his criminal allies. On the night of the escape, chaos erupted inside the prison. Alarms blared, guards were attacked, and smoke bombs filled the halls. Within the confusion, Ali slipped out. By dawn, news flashed everywhere. Dangerous criminal Ali escapes prison. Maryam's blood ran cold. She knew his first target would be her. Maryam was placed under police protection, but Ali was cunning. He changed hideouts, wore disguises, and stalked her from the shadows. The hunter was back, and this time he wanted blood. One fateful night, Ali finally struck. Armed with a stolen gun, he cornered Maryam in a deserted parking lot. His voice was venomous, his eyes blazing with hatred. "You ruined me, Maryam. Tonight, I'll ruin you." But before he could pull the trigger, undercover officers emerged from the darkness. It had all been a trap. Shots rang out. Ali fell to the ground, his reign of terror ending in blood and silence. Maryam, trembling but alive, realized justice had finally won, not just in court but in life itself. Ali and Maryam's marriage had once been a dream, built on promises of love and trust. But over time, that dream began to crumble under the weight of secrets, too. Another woman had entered Ali's life, and soon his late-night calls, excuses, and sudden disappearances became too frequent to ignore. At first, Maryam turned a blind eye, convincing herself that it was just stress or work pressure, but her heart whispered otherwise. Fuck her. One day, she unlocked Ali's phone and found the undeniable truth: photos, messages, and call logs that confirmed his betrayal. Her world collapsed in that instant. So, along with heartbreak came fury. Maryam decided she would no longer remain silent. She would stand up and fight for justice. 6. A divorce and cheating case was filed in court. Ali, arrogant as ever, produced false witnesses and fabricated stories to clear his name. 7. But Maryam had solid evidence. Each hearing became a battlefield where truth and lies clashed violently. Ali's pride turned to poison. He could not bear the humiliation of losing. Behind the scenes, he began bribing people and planning something darker. Caught. One stormy night, Ali arranged for Maryam's abduction. But the police, already alerted, were waiting. A bloody clash unfolded, and Ali's men were captured. New charges were added against Ali. Inside the courtroom, his mask of innocence fell apart. Maryam finally breathed in relief, though Ali's burning eyes promised revenge. 11. Prison didn't break him. Instead, it gave him new power. With money and manipulation, Ali built ties with dangerous criminals and corrupt guards inside. 12. Meanwhile, Maryam tried to rebuild her shattered life. She moved to a smaller apartment, focused on work, and searched for peace. But she could never forget Ali's cold stare. 13. Soon, strange threats began to appear. Her car was vandalized, her lawyer received anonymous warnings, and she often felt she was being followed. 14. Investigations revealed the truth. Ali was running everything from behind bars, pulling strings like a shadowy king. 15. Maryam cooperated with the police, determined not to be broken. Together, they began tracking Ali's communications and smuggled orders. 16. But Ali had a greater plan. After months of scheming, he organized a daring prison escape. Riots, bribes, and violence opened his path to freedom. 17. One night, chaos erupted inside the prison. Sirens wailed, smoke filled the halls, and guards were attacked. In the confusion, Ali slipped away. 18. By morning, the headlines screamed, "Dangerous criminal Ali escapes prison." Maryam's blood froze. She knew she was his first target. 19. Disguised and hidden in the city, Ali stalked her every move. Finally, one dark night, he cornered her in an abandoned parking lot, a gun in his hand. 20. But it was the end of his reign. Police officers lying in wait sprang into action. Shots rang out. Ali fell to the ground, defeated. Maryam, trembling yet alive, realized justice had finally prevailed. Ali and Maryam's marriage once looked like a fairy tale. They had tied the knot with promises of loyalty, trust, and a future filled with dreams. But behind the curtain of that perfect life, Ali's heart had already drifted elsewhere. Late-night calls, unexplained absences, and lies became his new routine. Maryam noticed the changes, but at first she ignored them. She convinced herself that maybe he was just stressed or too busy with work. One day, fate gave her the truth she had been avoiding. On Ali's phone, she found intimate photos and messages that shattered her illusions. Her heart broke, but her spirit hardened. Maryam refused to be silent. She gathered evidence and prepared to face him not at home, but in court. When the case began, Ali appeared confident. He hired expensive lawyers, brought fake witnesses, and spun lies to hide his betrayal. But Maryam had the truth on her side. With solid proof, messages, call records, and witnesses of her own, she struck at every defense Ali tried to build. Each court hearing turned into a battlefield. The atmosphere was heavy, filled with shouting lawyers, tense silences, and eyes locked like enemies. Ali's pride could not handle the humiliation. Losing was not an option for him. His anger grew and he began plotting revenge outside the law. One rainy night, he ordered men to abduct Maryam, but she had already alerted the police. A bloody fight erupted, and Ali's men were caught. Ali himself was dragged out of his car in handcuffs, his arrogance dripping away with the rain. The courtroom saw him not as a husband, but as a criminal. Sentenced to prison, Ali promised himself that this was not the end. Behind bars, he quickly gained power, bribing guards and making allies among dangerous inmates. Maryam, free for the first time, tried to rebuild her life. She moved into a small apartment, focused on her work, and surrounded herself with hope. But shadows followed her. The night Ali was shot, silence fell heavy over the parking lot. Maryam stood frozen, her hands trembling, watching the man who once shared her life now lying lifeless on the ground. Police officers rushed to secure the scene. They comforted Maryam, but deep down, she knew this wound was far from healed. The scars of betrayal and fear still burned. Days passed, and Maryam tried to return to normal life. She started therapy, spent more time at work, and even tried reconnecting with old friends. Yet nightmares haunted her sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Ali's stare, the rage in his eyes, the final promise of revenge before his fall. The case made headlines across the country. Ali's name became synonymous with crime, betrayal, and obsession. But with his death came new questions. Investigators discovered documents and accounts that proved Ali wasn't working alone. His influence stretched further than anyone realized. Hidden bank accounts, coded letters, and phone records hinted at a larger network of criminals tied to Ali's schemes. Maryam's name was still on their list. The police advised her to stay cautious. Ali may be gone, one officer told her, but his shadow is still out there. Maryam's fragile sense of peace cracked again. The thought that someone else might come for her reignited her fear. One evening, as she returned home from work, she noticed a black envelope slipped under her door. Inside was a single note. "The game isn't over." Her blood ran cold. The handwriting wasn't Ali's, but the threat felt just as personal. Someone had picked up where Ali left off. Determined not to live in fear, Maryam met with detectives and handed over the letter. They began tracing every clue, but the enemy remained hidden. Meanwhile, Maryam strengthened herself. She joined self-defense classes, kept close contact with the police, and vowed never to be a victim again. Weeks later, another warning arrived. This time it wasn't a note, it was a break-in. Her apartment was ransacked, yet nothing was stolen. It was intimidation. Surveillance footage showed a masked figure leaving the building. The police suspected an associate of Ali's, but no one could confirm the identity. Maryam realized this was no longer just about Ali. This was about the legacy of his crimes, the network he had built still breathing outside prison walls. The fear that once broke her now turned into fuel. She promised herself she wouldn't just survive, she would end this once and for all. A joint operation between police and cybercrime units began. They traced Ali's old accounts and finally uncovered connections to arms dealers and a secret gang. But the deeper they went, the clearer it became. Ali's story was just one chapter of a larger criminal empire, and Maryam had unknowingly become part of the war against it. Standing by her window one night, Maryam whispered to herself, "This isn't just my fight anymore. This is bigger than me." The shadows were rising again, and the battle was far from over. The investigation into Ali's network widened. Detectives uncovered that his influence had reached far beyond personal betrayal. It stretched into smuggling, extortion, and political corruption. Maryam, once just a victim, was now an unwilling key witness. She knew more than she realized, and that made her a target. The police placed her under surveillance. 2 plainclothes officers shadowed her movements, but danger seemed to seep through the cracks. One night, a brick smashed through her apartment window. Attached was another note. "Silence yourself, or we will." Fear gripped her heart, but she forced herself to stay calm. "I won't be broken again," she whispered, clutching the note in her trembling hands. Investigators linked the threats to a gang called the Black Serpents, one of the very groups Ali had partnered with during his prison reign. Their leader, a man named Karim, had taken over Ali's operations after his death. Ruthless and calculating, he saw Maryam as a loose end to eliminate. Meanwhile, Maryam began training harder. Self-defense classes became her daily routine. She was transforming from prey into someone ready to fight back. The police encouraged her courage, but warned her of Karim's cruelty. "This man doesn't just kill," one officer said. "He makes examples." The city soon became a chessboard of violence. Shootings, arsons, and mysterious disappearances were reported, all tied back to the Black Serpents. Maryam's testimony became urgent. She agreed to help the police expose Karim's empire, even if it meant putting her life on the line. Late one evening, She sat across from detectives, detailing everything she knew about Ali's dealings. Every detail was another weapon against his allies, but Kareem was always one step ahead. He had informants inside the system, feeding him updates about Maryam's cooperation. Soon, an ambush was attempted. While being escorted to court, Maryam's convoy was attacked on a deserted highway. Bullets shattered glass and chaos erupted. The officers fought back fiercely. Maryam, ducking low in the back seat, realized this was no longer a legal battle. It was war. By some miracle, she survived. The attackers fled when reinforcements arrived, but the message was clear. Kareem wouldn't stop until she was silenced. That night, staring at her blood-stained clothes, Maryam made a choice. If they want to fight, she said to herself, then I'll give them one. She began working directly with an elite crime unit. What had started as self-defense was now turning into a mission to dismantle Ali's dark legacy. Each day, the police uncovered new pieces of the puzzle, hidden warehouses, offshore accounts, and weapons stashes. The empire was beginning to crumble, but Kareem was watching. From the shadows, he whispered to his men, "If Ali failed, I won't. Maryam will not live to see the end of this game,